back then in the early '90s, Cicero was almost as bad as Chicago, or if not worse, just because it was so smaller. But I lived on 14th Street and 51st, and I think it was Court, and that was my block. I lived right in the middle on the second floor of one of their very active members. I remember him to this day. It looks quiet now, but in the '90s, it was packed with 20, 30 noble knights deep. And me, I was just a little kid admiring, looking, and learning. I lived upstairs for one of their main shot callers. This isn't a story. I lived it. Noble Knights is actually a gang that started in Cicero. If I'm correct, it has deep roots. I don't know if they're still there or not, but I wanted to make episodes that pretty much I could back up with my life of street gangs that were around, and when I was around as a kid. And this particular time, my dad, I want to say it was 1990. My dad lived in Cicero. He lived right off of Cicero and 14th. The swap meet was right on the corner. The karate dojo where we used to go, me and my stepbrothers, was right there on 51st and 14th. I wasn't in that gang, but I was in that world, and every step I took to school was, past nods, signs, tattoos. I went through I went to a karate dojo right down the street on 14th, and even there, you felt the presence of the organizations that ran that neighborhood. Everybody knew who was who, and everybody knew not to talk about it. Like it was a code. That's how Chicago is, especially if you're from that neighborhood. Who were the Noble Knights? The Noble Knights started in the early '70s, right there in Cicero. Mostly white when they first started it, at first, and that's most of the gangs in Chicago. Then, as the neighborhood started changing, they started letting Latinos into the gang. They weren't just some like street punks, They had structure, symbols, order. Their colors, black and royal blue. You saw the night helmets tagged all around the Grant Works area, from Roosevelt to 16th Street. But that's the difference in some of the neighborhoods in Chicago, is that these guys grew up together. They weren't strangers. They were cousins, brothers, neighbors. They've been there for years, grandfathers. That's what made it different. That's what made it dangerous. Chicago gangs are not just about guns and the drugs. It was identity. You had white guys with slick back, pushback hair, ponytails, Mexican with fades. It was, rat tails, graffiti. Wasn't just tags on the wall. It was a code, a language, everything meaning something. Even how you laced your shoes, how you wore your hat, how you walked. Everything meant something. It cost you your life. We thought it was cool because we saw, we grew into it. We thought it was the only way to live. We thought it was normal. But we didn't. But what we didn't see as kids was the trauma behind it. How we saw some of our friends get killed before they were even gang members, because they just were dressing the same way as everyone else in that neighborhood. If you grew up in those neighborhoods, you've heard the shots. You've heard the yelling at night. I remember times cars pulled up, sprayed the corners, people crying. It was like a movie, only it wasn't. It was my reality. They say you become what you surround yourself by. And I was surrounded by men who respected and feared men that didn't think they would make it past 25. And many of us didn't. I could have ended up just like most of them. But I chose a different path. I got locked up. Sure. But in those walls, I found strength. I built wrong to strong to show people that there is another way. That pain doesn't have to be our prison. It could be your purpose. This isn't to glorify the gangs in Chicago or where I'm from. This is to show the whole picture, the whole code, the culture, the consequences. We all know where this road leads. We don't have to try and sugarcoat things. If you grew up like I did, this story is for you. If you're still in it, there's a way out. If you're just watching, then now you know. This was just the beginning. Next, we dive into the Latin Counts, the 12th Street Players, the Kings, Chicago's real street history through the eyes of someone who lived it. This is Wrong to Strong, and we don't just talk about the streets. We survived them, and I know you can survive them too. Suelta la Suburban.